The following evening, Secretary Song Moonong informed Taejun that So-eun had taken the day off. He asked her to make sure there wouldn't be any issues with the future projects team. The woman hesitated, not wanting to disturb the girl on her day off with calls. But Taejun cut her off. Call her. Ask if her health is okay. He remembered their conversation yesterday, how she had asked about his difficult times, then said he wouldn't understand her. But that wasn't true. He had been through hard times too. 20 years ago, when his parents died, he had become completely alone in the world. And then he met her. Little Han So-eun hadn't known or understood anything back then. When she saw the soaked boy standing in the rain, all she could do was shout that he should take an umbrella. He was drenched and might get sick. That was all she could offer. She had no idea what had happened to him. The director of the law firm called out to Hyun-uk just as he was about to step into the elevator. He expressed his resentment about the failed business trip to Japan. Hyun-uk looked confused. I don't understand what you mean. The director explained that a foreign talent had called and said he refused to cooperate with them. He had chosen to move to Korea instead. So director Kim Taejun was very disappointed. The director also added that he wanted to keep the fact that they were working for him a secret. Hyun-uk was shocked and didn't understand how this could have happened. He thought everything was going great. His boss patted him on the shoulder. Don't worry. Just keep doing your job well. Hyun-uk was furious and upset. Such a potentially big client had slipped away. He stood waiting for the elevator, replaying it in his head. In Japan, everything had seemed perfect. The client was ready to sign the contract, then suddenly changed his mind. Suddenly Hyun-ji appeared. She saw his expression and asked what had happened. Hyun-uk replied sadly, Taejun fired us. Hyun-ji immediately thought it was because of their affair at work. Hyun-uk glanced around quickly. Keep your voice down. He explained that director Taejun was upset about their failure in Japan, so he decided to let them go. Hyun-ji slipped her arm through his and started cheering him up. Everything will be okay. She brightened. What matters more to me is that we got to spend time together. Hyun-uk stared at her, hardly believing his luck. He thought how deeply in love with him she must be to say such sweet things. Suddenly his phone rang. It was his sister. He asked Hyun-ji to go on without him and answered the call, thinking, as usual, that his sister had picked the worst possible timing. As soon as he picked up, she asked if So-eun had called him. Hyun-uk paused. He realized they hadn't spoken since saying goodbye in the parking lot before his business trip. No, we haven't talked yet, he said. What happened? His sister started crying, repeating that she didn't know what to do now. He tried to calm her down and asked again what was wrong. The woman sobbed. My son told So-eun that everyone in the family has the same blood type O. Hyun-uk froze and began to tremble with anger. His sister kept insisting that she had tried to make it look like the child had lied. But So-eun hadn't believed her, and now she didn't know what to do. Hyun-uk started yelling at his sister, calling her names. He was furious, thinking how stupid she and her son had been. He had specifically told them to be careful around So-eun. So-eun lay in bed at home, thinking she should take more days off, or sick days. She stared at the ceiling, wondering why she had always gone to work so diligently when the company didn't even encourage overtime. Sunlight streamed through the window, shimmering with tiny golden specks. She remembered how, as a child, she had once believed those were real gold particles. A boy she knew had explained they were just dust motes catching the light. Just like how she had once believed Hyun-uk loved her, when it was really just pain. It was time to end it all. A part of her wondered if she would regret it. Maybe she would. That stubborn part kept reminding her how important Hyun-uk had been. Maybe if she gave him time, he would understand and apologize. Maybe after the wedding, they could live happily ever after. So-eun realized she had had that same vision before. That was how pathetic she had been. In the past, she would have panicked about coping without him, about being alone again. But now she saw herself as a normal person. Everything would be okay. She had made her choice on her own. She no longer wanted to doubt herself or her decisions. Later, the girl walked down the street, feeling a little strange. She was used to being at work at this hour, but today she was just wandering. Suddenly her phone rang. It was Secretary Song Moonong. So-eun was surprised. Is something wrong? The woman reassured her and explained that the CO had asked her to call and check if she was feeling well, if everything was okay. So-eun felt uncomfortable. I'm fine. She added that she had made sure her absence wouldn't affect the future projects team, and she planned to return to work tomorrow. Suddenly the secretary asked if the girl was eating well. So-eun replied that she was fine and would eat soon. The woman said good food helped recovery go faster. She sent So-eun a gift card for free healthy porridge at a nearby restaurant and told her to be sure to eat it. The girl felt pleasantly touched by the concern. She stared at her phone, thinking about the good people around her. It gave her a surge of determination. She dialed Hyun-uk's number. He answered right away. I was just about to call you myself. So-eun thought he was acting as if nothing had happened, again. Hyun-uk said he wanted to talk to her about something. He mentioned he had heard about her finding out that everyone in the family had the same blood type. He started explaining that his sister's liver was in as bad shape as their mother's, so she couldn't donate, and his father's blood types didn't match. He even offered to give her all the medical certificates to prove it. After So-eun replied that she wanted to see the certificates in person, Hyun-uk grew indignant. He started talking about how they shouldn't fight over it, and anyway, his mom couldn't give her liver back. He tried to manipulate her again. If you love me, you should be ready to face difficulties and endure everything. So-eun interrupted him. She said they should meet that evening at 7 o'clock and discuss it in person. Later, So-eun arrived at work and said hello. Boomi greeted her cheerfully. How are you feeling? The girl replied that everything was fine and handed her a cup of steaming coffee. She apologized for Boomi having to cover for 2 people during her absence. Boomi looked pleasantly surprised and thanked her for the thoughtfulness. So-eun also walked over to Jang Eunpyo and thanked him for his help. Smiling, she handed him a cup of coffee too. The man froze in surprise. So-eun thought he didn't like coffee and even felt a flicker of upset, but he quickly assured her that he loved latte and simply hadn't expected the gesture from her. He accepted the cup and asked how her health was. It was the first time she had seen him smile. Usually he was always serious, so she felt a little confused but replied that she was fine. Suddenly the work phone rang. Boomi answered and said they were calling for So-eun. Taejun sat with his arms crossed over his chest and reprimanded her for overworking over the weekend and eventually having to take a day off. So-eun looked at the CEO with an unreadable expression, thinking he probably knew she had taken the day off for another reason. The man asked if she was okay and if she had managed to sort out her problems. The girl assured him she was fine and that it would take her about 2 weeks to resolve her issues. Before she could finish, the CEO interrupted her. I'm referring to the situation with your boyfriend. So-eun felt embarrassed and wondered why he was prying into her private life again. She kept up a strained smile while Taejun reasoned that he understood why she had taken the day off. He added that he thought she should have rested more. So-eun replied that she planned to meet Hyun-uk today, so she wouldn't be able to stay late at work. Taejun asked where exactly their meeting would take place. The girl sensed something off but answered that she would go to Seoul after work. Suddenly the man said nonchalantly that he would drive her personally to the meeting place. So-eun was shocked. Why the hell is he meddling again? Headlines flashed through her mind, possible articles about the CEO giving his employee a lift in his car, and how people would gossip if they found out. Unexpectedly, she plucked up her courage and asked why he was so interested in her love life. The two stared at each other. Taejun smiled. You've probably been watching too many dramas. He replied that he cared about every employee in the company and told her it was time to get to work. So-eun got angry. She realized he was just laughing at her. She said she had to get back to work. The man kept smiling cheerfully and told her not to push herself too hard, she would need her strength in the evening. So-eun skipped out of his office, and Taejun grinned after her with a smirk. He leaned back in his chair and exhaled heavily, lost in reminiscence. He thought about how naive she still was, how desperate she had been to ask him those questions. As a child, he had thought he didn't like her, she was annoying, whiny, and he had been angry with her. But even then, for a very long time, he had known the answer. He remembered telling her about the gold dust, how it was essentially useless but beautiful. And now, looking back at those moments, he realized he liked them. He definitely knew the answer to her question. That evening, as promised, Taejun drove So-eun to the meeting place. There was an awkward silence in the car. The girl reasoned that the whole situation really did feel like a scene from a drama, where she would most likely be the main female character. In those stories, the protagonist goes through all the difficulties and ends up with a happy ending. So maybe it wasn't so bad. So-eun smiled contentedly to herself. Maybe the director liked dramas, and this was his chance to watch personal drama unfold in real life. Otherwise, why would he keep offering to drop her off? When they arrived, Taejun asked if she wanted him to go with her. She thanked him and said she could manage on her own. The man replied that if she needed any help, she should call him. So-eun thanked him again and got out of the car. She walked with a confident stride, thinking that it was finally time to fix herself the way she always fixed gadgets. Entering the hotel lobby, she smiled radiantly and greeted Hyun-uk. The man looked confused at the sight of her. It was obvious he was nervous. So-eun stared at him and thought he looked like a squid. She wondered why she hadn't noticed before how strange his face really was. Suddenly she noticed he was holding a box with a new cell phone and wondered what it was for. Hyun-uk replied that he had bought it for her. So-eun thanked him, took the gift and asked where they would go to talk. She had already turned around when the man stammered and asked her to give him her old phone. He said he'd transfer all the data because she wasn't good at it. So-eun looked at him resentfully. I specialize in gadgets. I make a living from it. Hyun-uk looked foolish at that moment and apologized, stammering. He immediately pulled out the documents and began explaining that he had brought them so she could be convinced he wasn't lying about his sister's health condition. So-eun clasped her hands together and said she actually wanted to talk to him about something else. The girl stated that, in any case, she would have given part of her liver to his mother if he had asked her to do so. Hyun-uk didn't even listen. He immediately started talking about how she was probably tired and offered to go up to the room with him for a delicious dinner and a good time together. Unexpectedly, So-eun began to laugh. Hyun-uk stared at her in bewilderment. She kept laughing and he started to get angry. What's so funny? So-eun looked at him with a smile. She wondered how pathetic he looked and why she hadn't noticed it before. You can forget about me. I wish you happiness with Hyunji. Hyun-uk was visibly nervous. I don't know what you're talking about. He started insisting there was no one else for him but her. So-eun said she had seen and heard them at the airport. Her expression turned serious. She didn't like that he was taking her for a fool. I'm not going to wait for you to dump me. I'm dumping you myself. She pushed the box with the phone away. I don't accept your gift. Hyun-uk stared at her in confusion, shocked and speechless. So-eun stood up, wished him well and prepared to leave. Hyun-uk finally gathered his courage. So, you really want to break up? Could you not tell Hyunji about the surgery? So-eun looked at him with disdain. Even in this moment, the only thing he cared about was himself. She tossed the answer over her shoulder. I won't say anything. I want nothing to do with you. Hyun-uk replied ingratiatingly, good that we talked it over. If that's what you want, I won't mind breaking up with you. He thanked her and added that he would never meet someone like her again. So-eun looked up and breathed a sigh of relief. Finally, it's over. Then she turned, smirked, and said, I hope I never meet anyone like you again. Leaving, So-eun told Hyun-uk to delete her number and never bother her again. She walked away, thinking about how much good she had done for him and his family. She hoped that one day they could become more decent people. So-eun exhaled and thought she hoped Hyun-uk would someday become someone who truly appreciated the people around him. Suddenly she heard a hotel employee arguing with someone. Then she recognized the director's voice. He was trying to explain something. She called out to Taejun. The man immediately turned to her. So-eun asked why he hadn't left, since he said he had business in Seoul too. Taejun looked like a delinquent child caught in the act. I just wanted to drink tea. But his whole expression said otherwise. He had clearly stayed to see how her meeting would end, as if he really was watching a drama unfold in real life. So-eun exhaled condescendingly. Why are you talking nonsense? Suddenly her leg twisted. She felt herself losing balance. The thought of falling straight onto the pavement flashed through her mind. But contrary to her fears, she landed face first against Taejun's big, strong chest. The man caught her and held her steady by the shoulders. So-eun blushed deeply, mortified by how close they were standing. Taejun looked at her carefully. Are you all right? They continued standing like that. He asked how she was feeling and how the meeting had gone. So-eun didn't move. She remained in his arms, eyes downcast and sad. Taejun patted her on the back like a little child. I'm sure you did well. Suddenly So-eun caught a pleasant scent coming from him. She wondered if it was his shampoo or cologne. Then she abruptly pulled away, startled by her own thoughts. What am I even thinking? Her cheeks flushed. She coughed awkwardly and thanked him for his support. I have to go now. Taejun offered to drive her home. She shook her head. I have another appointment. I can't go with you. The man's expression shifted. He looked like a cute, pleading puppy. I've been waiting here all this time just to give you a ride. So-eun couldn't resist that look. They were already driving in the car when she suddenly asked, Can I leave work early tomorrow? Taejun replied contentedly, If you need it, no problem at all. He asked what she planned to do. When he heard she was going on a blind date, he slammed on the brake pedal. The man turned to her. Are you in too much of a hurry? So-eun explained that her friend had told her to go on a date to get over her ex-boyfriend. Taejun clutched the steering wheel irritably while So-eun continued explaining that she had arranged to meet the guy tomorrow, so she would try to finish all her work before leaving. Suddenly the man started scolding her for being in too much of a hurry. You just broke up with your boyfriend. You can't forget a failed relationship by jumping straight into a new one. So-eun grew indignant. She argued that he wanted her to stay stuck in the past, obsessing over it. Taejun marveled at her naivety and shouted, Does she really think love is that easy? The two glared at each other in silent struggle. So-eun kept insisting that everything needed to be done on time. If she got a chance for a date, she would take it. Then Taejun switched into full boss mode. Work has to be done on time too. Since you recently took a day off, forget about leaving early tomorrow. The girl pouted. In that case, I'll just date during lunchtime. Taejun became almost hysterical. Why are you so obsessed with squeezing a date into working hours? Then he exhaled and spoke more calmly. It's your right to go on a blind date, but don't adjust your schedule to fit whatever time is convenient for him. If he can't find a time that works for you, then don't go out with someone like that at all. They pulled up to the right address. Then Taejun wished her a good evening. At that moment, So-eun drew his attention to herself. With a smug smirk, she showed him her phone screen, a text from the guy agreeing to meet her this weekend. But even that didn't satisfy Taejun. He said the guy seemed suspicious because he changed his mind too quickly. He pointed out that she was adjusting to other people's schedules again. The man started berating her for always sacrificing herself for others, saying that soon she'd be sacrificing her organs too. Suddenly he heard her burst out laughing. So-eun laughed loudly and heartily. It was the first time he had ever seen someone laugh so sincerely and unrestrained. Taejun looked at her, confused. He had been talking about serious things. What could possibly be so funny? He turned to her. Calm down. The girl stammered between laughs. I even got a stomach ache from laughing so hard. So-eun wiped the tears from the corners of her eyes. Her cheeks were flushed. She thanked him for making her laugh so heartily. She promised she would heed his advice and start living a new life. The girl thanked him for everything he had been doing for her. Taejun stared at her, at a loss for words. So-eun got out of the car in a great mood, her face shining with joy. She thanked him once again for the ride and wished him a good evening. He was left sitting in the car, completely stunned. Taejun blushed and got embarrassed. He thought she was very pretty and sweet and didn't understand what had come over him all of a sudden. What had just happened between them? Hyun-uk sat in his office, scrolling through So-eun's social media. She hadn't posted anything lately. He remembered chasing after her, hoping to grab her phone and erase the data. Everything had worked out perfectly. Hyunji had been pushing him to break up with So-eun anyway, so it was all to his advantage. But when he had caught up with her, he froze in place. Hyun-uk had seen Seo Taejun hugging So-eun by the shoulders. He couldn't believe his eyes. What the hell was that bastard doing here? Now the man sat clutching his phone, thinking that he hadn't wanted to fight them then. The Seo was a potential client, but he had definitely seen them hugging. He didn't understand why someone like Taejun would pay attention to a simpleton like So-eun. His thoughts were interrupted by the sound of a text message. Hyunji said she would be at the office and they could see each other. As Hyun-uk hummed to himself, he reasoned that Taejun had probably had a business meeting at the hotel, and So-eun had just bumped into him as she ran out in frustration after their breakup. He knocked and entered Hyunji's office. The girl was busy with her work and didn't notice him right away. Without looking up, she asked why he had come to her. Hyun-uk approached her conspiratorially and happily told her that he had broken up with So-eun. Satisfied with himself, Hyun-uk announced that he had booked a hotel room so they could go and have a good time together. Hyunji smiled sweetly, but her eyes were sharp. She scolded him lightly. He had just broken up with one girl and was already whisking another to a hotel, especially on a Monday when they both had mountains of work piling up. Hyun-uk instantly felt like a scolded puppy who had knocked over the favorite vase. Hyunji kept going, telling him off for dumping So-eun just to hop into bed with her. She slapped the documents on the table with dramatic flair. We need to clarify something right now. She declared firmly that until they were married, there would be no intimacy between them. Then, narrowing her eyes playfully menacing, she asked, have you even thought about proposing to me yet? Hyunji flashed a sweet smile again. We have to do things the right way, don't we? So-eun sat at her desk. Bumi's cheerful voice cut through her focus. Hey, skipping lunch again? Why are you glued to your screen during break time? So-eun laughed softly. This time I'm just browsing new clothes online. I've got a blind date coming up. Bumi's eyes widened. Wait, when did you even break up with your boyfriend? When she learned it had only been yesterday, she raised an eyebrow. Aren't you moving a little fast? So-eun paused, then asked with a small grin, is it really that weird? Bumi hesitated, then shrugged warmly. Do whatever feels right for you. So-eun's face lit up. Help me pick an outfit? Bumi smiled to herself. So-eun might look delicate, but she was tougher than she seemed. Later that night, Taejun called So-eun into his office. Are you busy this weekend? She answered confidently, yes, I'm going on a blind date. The CEO stayed perfectly calm. I'm sorry, but I'll need you to come into work this weekend. You'll have to cancel your plans. So-eun stared at him blankly. Taejun stated that although he was sorry, it was necessary for her to finish all the work before Monday. They were in a great hurry. The girl could tell from his expression that he wasn't sorry at all. So-eun glared at him angrily, thinking he was meddling way too much in her private life and that what he was doing wasn't legitimate. Suddenly a stray thought slipped into her mind. Did he have feelings for her? That would at least explain his behavior logically. But she quickly dismissed it. If he liked her, he wouldn't treat her like this. They weren't children. Gathering all her courage, she asked him directly, do you hate me? She looked at him and honestly admitted to herself that a positive answer might hurt. They held each other's gaze. So-eun waited for his reply while Taejun remained strangely silent. Then he broke the silence. I see you as an employee who works hard and diligently, and as a very intelligent person. I hope you don't disappoint me. He added that he absolutely did not hate her. Taejun stood up from his desk and reminded her that the work had to be submitted by Monday. He said he had to leave and wished her a good evening. The girl held back tears, thinking, as always, she had been wrong again. Of course there were no feelings. A man like him would never look at her. Back in her office, So-eun resolved to finish all her work before the weekend so she'd still have time for her date. She dove into the tasks excitedly, thinking to herself that she would show Hyun-uk and Taejun exactly what she was capable of. She decided to pull herself together. Wiping away her tears, she vowed to prove to everyone that she was going to be okay. Secretary Song Moonong rode the elevator with Taejun and cast thoughtful glances at him. The woman sighed heavily. It was obvious she wanted to say something, but the man kept ignoring her. Finally she couldn't hold back. "May I ask you a question?" Taejun looked at her with interest. Song Moonong said she had noticed that lately he had been showing a lot of concern toward manager Han Song. Taejun stared at the woman in surprise. He recalled events from 20 years ago. Walking through the garden as a boy, he greeted the gardener who was pruning the trees. The man replied good-naturedly, "Hello, young master." He added that summer was almost over and the air was getting chilly. Little Taejun said he wanted to read in the garden. The gardener smiled. "I'll move the stepladder so I don't disturb you." The boy apologized quickly. "I didn't mean to interfere with your work." "Thank you." The gardener waved it off. "It's fine." He thought to himself that this boy was kind and good despite the tragedy that had struck his family. Taejun sat on the bench under the tree and thanked the man again. Once the gardener was out of sight, the boy exhaled heavily. At least here, no one would come looking for him. He read his book for a while, then began wondering when So-eun would return from the garden. She was playing with the other children. Even though he attended school and had extra tutoring, it seemed this girl was busier than he was. Taejun didn't notice himself drifting off under the shade of the tree. He slept sweetly until a shadow fell across his face. Suddenly he woke to the sensation of someone kissing him. His eyes snapped open. Taejun thought it was his grandfather. He sat up quickly and began explaining that he had accidentally fallen asleep on the bench. Turning around, he saw little So-eun standing in front of him. The girl smiled sweetly. "If you kiss me, I wake up too." He blushed furiously, grabbed his book, and jumped off the bench. He shouted, "If you ever touch me like that again, I'll hang you from a tree branch." The girl stood there, confused by his sudden anger. So-eun asked him to play with her. The boy replied that he didn't have time. He had too many things to do. She reached out teasingly, saying she would kiss him again. The boy blushed furiously and backed away, defending himself. The children didn't notice someone watching them from around the corner. After a while, Auntie told Taejun that So-eun's family had left unexpectedly. They hadn't even warned anyone beforehand. The boy was shocked and upset. He couldn't understand why it had happened, why she hadn't even said goodbye. He remembered sharing sweets with her, all the time they spent playing together. Anger shook him. He clenched his fists tightly. Taejun couldn't believe they had just left like that after everything. Auntie saw her nephew's state and worried for him. She realized how close the two children had become. Suddenly the boy spoke up. "I'm not upset. I hate that girl." Now, hearing Secretary Song Moonong's words, Taejun glanced at her sideways. "I hate her," he uttered quietly. The woman's mouth fell open in surprise. Taejun gave an awkward smile. "I hate that type of person." So-eun was working through her second night in a row. She could barely keep her eyes open and told herself to be patient just a little longer. She had slept only a couple of hours, haunted by nightmares about the director. During the day she worked at the service center. She had set herself a clear goal, finish everything in time and definitely go on that blind date. She worked relentlessly, planning to collapse into bed as soon as she got home. And finally, just as she wrapped up the last task, Taejun walked into the office. Taejun said hello, and So-eun beamed. "Perfect timing, I was just about to tell you everything's done." She glowed with smug satisfaction, gestured proudly at the table, and announced she had completed all his tasks. The man froze. He couldn't believe she had powered through such a massive amount of work in so little time. So-eun invited him to sit and check. Taejun scanned the digital files and flipped through the folders, then slowly admitted, "You really did finish everything." He asked who had helped her. So-eun smiled radiantly. "I did it all alone." Taejun stared at her, thinking that if he had tackled that workload himself, it would have taken days without sleep. He asked how she managed it. The girl clenched her fists in a triumphant little gesture and replied with a bright smile, "Nothing's impossible if you really want it." Taejun praised her sincerely. "I'm impressed. I can trust you with any job now." So-eun felt a rush of happiness and pride. She started to say she was heading home when he cut her off. It's time to talk about a few more tasks for the future team. She physically felt her weekend plans crumbling under his words. Taejun folded his hands together with a fake smile. "I planned to start on Monday, but now I've decided to follow your example and show some enthusiasm. Let's begin today." He didn't wait for her answer and immediately launched into where they should start. Suddenly So-eun's vision blurred, her eyes glazing over with dizziness. Her last hazy thought was, do I really have to keep working? Taejun kept explaining the plan, not noticing her silence at first. Then he wondered why she was so quiet. He turned irritably. Are you even listening? He saw what he had caused. So-eun collapsed straight to the floor, unconscious. The girl collapsed without strength. Her last hazy thought was that even if the company president walked in right now, she still wouldn't be able to get up. A single tear slipped down her cheek, and she passed out. Taejun carried the unconscious So-eun to the emergency room. The doctor said she was fine, just severely overworked. Secretary Song Moonong called the office and learned the girl had worked 2 full days straight without a single break or going home. Taejun couldn't believe anyone could be crazy enough to push themselves like that. He told the secretary it was late and she should go home. She offered to stay with So-eun, but the CEO assured her he would take care of everything himself. Suddenly they heard the girl snoring softly and sweetly. Taejun sent the secretary home and thanked her for her help. He sat down beside the bed and looked around. He hadn't been in an emergency room in 20 years, but nothing had changed, same chaos, same sterile smell. So-eun groaned quietly in her sleep. Taejun leaned closer. He still couldn't believe she had been planning to go on a blind date in this condition. Suddenly her phone rang. The caller ID showed the guy she was supposed to meet. Taejun turned the phone face down so he wouldn't have to see it. The phone kept vibrating insistently. It was starting to annoy him. The guy clearly didn't know when to stop. Finally Taejun grabbed the phone and answered. Hello, this is So-eun's friend. She can't talk right now, what should I tell her? An agitated male voice replied that he was sorry, but he needed to cancel their blind date. He asked the friend to apologize for him and explain that he had gotten back together with his ex-girlfriend, so he wouldn't be able to see So-eun anymore. After finishing the call, Taejun looked at Han So-eun sleeping like a baby and felt surprised at how deeply and peacefully she rested. He wondered how she never got tired of pushing herself so hard. Usually the harder life got for people, the angrier and more bitter they became. Yet So-eun kept trying to live a good life despite all the hardships, though she didn't even know how to do it properly. Taejun stared at her, remembering all the times she had driven herself to exhaustion and how her selflessness toward others had only left her drained. He folded his hands and thought it would be better if she were always by his side. He sighed and ran a hand through his hair. He felt embarrassed but couldn't deny it anymore. The girl was exactly his type. The real problem lay elsewhere. He knew that if his grandfather and aunt ever found out about any relationship between them, they would act immediately. In their eyes, it would be unacceptable. So-eun would almost certainly be forced out of the company and vanish again, just like she had 20 years ago. To them, an ordinary employee meant nothing. Taejun reached over and gently stroked her face. He realized they would never touch him. He was too important to the family. But right now, with her here, he had nothing to lose by holding her close. Suddenly So-eun opened her eyes. Taejun hurriedly pulled his hand back before she could notice. The girl bolted upright in bed, panicked. Where am I? Taejun tried to calm her. You fainted from exhaustion. Secretary Song Moonong and I brought you to the emergency ward. So-eun looked scared and embarrassed. Then Taejun added quietly, your blind date got cancelled. The girl's face fell, she was finally upset. Taejun explained everything that had happened and mentioned he had recorded the conversation just in case. So-eun thanked him, but felt even more embarrassed that he had witnessed her failure. She picked up her phone and listened to the recording of the call. She thought that some people really did get back together with their exes, apparently it was normal for them. She hadn't expected this to happen to her, but it wasn't her fault. Honestly, she even felt a pang of jealousy. She wanted a normal relationship too. The girl doubted anyone would be seriously interested in her after learning she had given up part of her life, her liver, to her ex-boyfriend without marriage, sacrificing her health for his mother. She would just be seen as a naive fool. She didn't know if there was anyone in the world who could accept her with all her scars and past without hesitation. And if not, she would have to live her life alone. So-eun cried. But she never gave up hope of feeling true love at least once in her life. She turned to the CEO and said she was crying because she had fallen asleep with her contact lenses in, apologizing for the inconvenience. Taejun looked at her anxiously. You don't have to apologize. He stood up from his chair. I'll drive you home. The girl thanked him and said she could get home on her own, but he ignored her objections. So-eun was surprised. She didn't want to cause him more trouble. But the man confidently held out his hand. While she stared at his outstretched hand in bewilderment, Taejun started to look a little nervous. Take it. He took her hand and led her toward the exit. His grip was strong and warm. After a while, the CEO told So-eun not to go to work tomorrow and to rest properly. He offered to buy her dinner, but the girl didn't answer. Taejun looked over and saw that So-eun had fallen asleep. He tried to wake her gently. We're already at your house. The girl moaned sleepily through half-closed eyes. I want to sleep more. Taejun frowned, irritation creeping in. Are you going home or not? But she was already fast asleep again, breathing evenly. He sat there, debating how to wake her. Flicking someone who had just fainted from exhaustion felt wrong. Taejun watched her sleeping serenely in the passenger seat. He leaned closer and whispered near her ear, Han So-eun, wake up if you don't want to be scolded. Breathing heavily, Taejun carried So-eun on his back up the stairs to her apartment. He thought wryly that if this was her way of punishing him for pushing her to exhaustion over a blind date, then he was truly sorry. Finally they reached her door. If he remembered correctly from her personnel file, the password was... He shifted her weight and tried to wake her. So-eun, wake up. What's the door code? Han So-eun slept peacefully on his back, arms wrapped snugly around his neck like a koala. A tired Taejun raised his voice. Wake up and tell me the password, or I'll leave you right here under the door. The noise drew neighbors out. They poked their heads into the hallway, murmuring complaints about the racket and telling him to quiet down. Taejun felt mortified. With no other choice, he trudged back down the stairs, carried her to the car, gently laid her in the passenger seat, and tucked the blanket around her. He glanced at her sleeping face. It was the first time he'd seen someone sleep so soundly. He even wondered if she had taken the sleeping pills the hospital gave her. Muttering under his breath, I'm more exhausted than she is right now, he rubbed his aching back. Carrying her up and down those stairs had taken its toll. Taejun made sure she was comfortable, then decided he would wait until midnight. If she didn't wake by then, he'd take her to his place. Time slipped past midnight. In all his 30 years, this was the first time Taejun had ever brought a girl to his house. Sunlight streamed brightly through the window. So-eun opened her eyes. The girl couldn't remember the last time she had slept so deeply and so long. Suddenly she realized she had no idea where she was. She looked around, the room was spacious and spotless. So-eun quickly checked her clothes and body. Everything felt normal, no strange sensations. Her next thought was her phone. She frantically patted the bed and scanned the room until she spotted it on the bedside table. When she picked it up, a sticker on the screen caught her eye. You're at Kim Taejun's house. So-eun's hands trembled. Tears of gratitude welled up. She couldn't believe the CEO had taken such good care of her, first letting her work late, then rushing her to the hospital and watching over her. The last thing she remembered was falling asleep in his car. Everything after that was a blank. How she ended up here, she had no clue. She stared at the door, wondering if she could step out. As she quietly descended the stairs, she marveled at how huge the house was, questioning whether one person really needed all this space. Finally she reached the kitchen and saw Taejun standing there. She approached softly, but he suddenly turned. Taejun was dressed in casual home clothes, hair slightly damp and tousled. He smiled sincerely. How did you sleep? So-eun felt a flush of embarrassment. She hated causing him so much trouble. Hello, thank you for everything. She started to apologize, but he cut her off gently. It's the first time I've seen someone so completely worn out. Taejun smiled cheerfully. You might not remember, but I carried you on my back from the car all the way up to your apartment door. Since you never gave me the password, I had to carry you back down again, and eventually brought you here to my house. So-eun stood frozen in embarrassment. She couldn't believe a man had gone up and down 3 flights of stairs with her on his back. Taejun added casually, just so you know, the elevator in my building broke down. I had to carry you up to the 30th floor. The girl's eyes widened in horror. She felt a wave of panic, guilt crashing over her. She didn't know what to do or say. Taejun smirked inwardly, watching her reaction. How can she be so gullible? Doesn't she realize I'm joking? Suddenly So-eun burst into apologies. I'm so sorry, I feel terrible. It won't happen again. Taejun waved it off. Stop apologizing. It's fine. He gestured toward the table. Come on, join me for breakfast. So-eun started to refuse. No, really, I'd rather just go home. Taejun leaned down slightly, voice low and teasing. After everything I did for you last night, breakfast is the least you can do in return. I want to talk to you. He set plates of steaming breakfast on the table in front of her. So-eun stared at the food, his careful preparation, and felt a lump in her throat. She almost cried from happiness at how caring he was being. The two sat down at the table and began eating breakfast. So-eun thought it was the most awkward breakfast she had ever experienced. When Taejun asked if she had slept well, she thanked him quietly. It was fine. She had barely lifted the spoon to her mouth when he announced calmly, unlike you, I didn't sleep at all. The girl froze, spoon hovering midair. Taejun kept smiling nonchalantly. Since you were sleeping in my bed, I didn't get a chance to sleep at all. He looked strangely cheerful. So-eun felt another sharp pang of guilt. Her appetite vanished instantly. She started rambling apologies again, but Taejun cut her off gently. I want to discuss the future projects team with you. He explained that he planned to hire 2 more specialists in cell phones to join the team. It would be easier if she suggested suitable candidates, but if she didn't have anyone in mind, he would choose them himself. He added that from now on, they would only work 1 extra hour on team projects after regular hours. I don't want you working nights and overexerting yourself again. Taejun looked genuinely worried about her health. Fainting from exhaustion isn't normal. You should get a full medical checkup. So-eun knew her body still hadn't fully recovered from the surgery. She needed more rest. She silently decided to be kinder to herself from now on and start taking extra vitamins. She replied to the CEO that she was fine and promised she wouldn't push herself like that again. Taejun nodded. Eat quickly before it gets cold. So-eun started eating. Taejun watched her and thought she looked really see-you. Suddenly a strand of hair fell across her face. He thought she might get it dirty with food, so he reached forward to tuck it back. But So-eun quickly gathered her hair with both hands and tied it into a neat ponytail, without even needing a hair tie. Taejun immediately jerked his hand away, acting as if nothing had happened. He admitted with a casual shrug that he rarely ate breakfast at all. When So-eun replied that she was the same, he glanced at her plate. You're eating with a pretty good appetite right now. She smiled shyly. It's because the CEO cooked for me. Taejun looked at her. The girl appeared a little embarrassed, yet so beautiful and cute in that moment. He felt quietly pleased watching her eat, and watching how flustered she got giving him that small compliment. Catching himself staring, he stood up abruptly. I'm going to get dressed. He told her to take her time and eat well. As he left the room, he added over his shoulder, just leave the dishes where they are. So-eun blinked, puzzled by his sudden exit. She wondered what had come over him, why he'd gotten up so quickly. Taejun rubbed the back of his neck in embarrassment as he walked away. He couldn't figure out why he kept acting so strangely around this girl. Next to her, it was hard to hold back, every sense felt heightened. After a while, So-eun gathered her things and double-checked the room to make sure she hadn't forgotten anything. She already felt guilty for all the inconvenience she'd caused, and now he was even offering to drive her home. She walked down the stairs, thinking that even though he overloaded her with work, he was trying so hard to take care of her now. She didn't want to abuse that kindness. Taejun was already waiting downstairs. He held out his hand. Let me carry your bag. So-eun tried to protest. No need really. But he simply slipped the bag off her shoulder and told her to take care of herself and hurry up. The girl rushed after him, grabbing his arm to insist she could carry it herself. In the motion, she accidentally elbowed a vase behind her. It toppled, crashed to the floor with a sharp clatter, and shattered into pieces. So-eun froze in horror. She was terrified to look, afraid of what she'd done and how angry the CEO would be. She turned slowly. The vase was irreparably damaged. So-eun started desperately apologizing. I didn't do it on purpose, I swear. Taejun looked at her nonchalantly. Don't worry about it. I'll just call someone and sort it out. So-eun stared as he dialed the secretary and asked her to find a replacement for the moon vase his aunt had given him. He explained that his aunt would be upset if she heard it broke, so he needed one exactly like it. When he casually mentioned the vase cost about 5 million won, the girl froze on the spot and nearly fainted. After hanging up, Taejun turned to her. It's settled. Money's just money. So-eun felt like a total failure. She couldn't believe the CEO wasn't angry, she was ready to cry. When they finally arrived at her house, she still couldn't wrap her head around breaking his 5 million won vase. Even though he acted like it wasn't a big deal, guilt gnawed at her. She had to apologize properly. Sweat beaded on her forehead as she gathered her courage. Suddenly she blurted, I'm so sorry, I'm so clumsy. I wasn't wearing my lenses. She was truly sorry for everything. Taejun listened attentively. So-eun couldn't even meet his eyes. The guilt was crushing. Then Taejun spoke up. You pushed the vase because you were trying to take your bag back from me. So I'm partly to blame too. The girl blinked in surprise. He was apologizing now? Taejun smiled broadly. Can you get home on your own, or should I walk you up? I remember you can't see well without lenses, so let me help. So-eun blushed, flustered. She couldn't understand why he was being so kind and caring. No, really, I walk this way every day. I can manage. But before she finished, Taejun stepped out of the car and headed to the passenger side. He opened the door, held out his hand and said, Let's go. I'll walk with you. So-eun carefully walked up the stairs with Taejun following close behind. She bit her lower lip in thought, wondering why the CEO was behaving this way toward her. She couldn't figure out why he was suddenly so nice and attentive. After walking her all the way to her apartment door, Taejun wished her a good day and said goodbye until Monday. The embarrassed girl glanced back at him. Thank you again, for everything. She stepped inside, then slid down against the closed door, wrapping her arms around herself. She didn't understand what was happening to her. Had she really forgotten what Hyun-wook had done so quickly? Could she actually fall in love with someone new this fast after a breakup? Taejun was her boss, she couldn't cross that line. Suddenly her phone buzzed with a text message. It was from Taejun. his phone number, with a simple note to contact him if she ever needed help. After reading the text message, So-eun blushed even deeper and dropped her head into her lap. She replayed how he'd taken care of her, how he'd insisted on walking her all the way to the door, and she couldn't help thinking she was actually glad she'd forgotten her lenses. It had given him an excuse to stay close. Back home, Taejun collapsed onto his bed and exhaled heavily. He wondered why he had lied about having work to do just so he could drive her home. Why hadn't he let her see he was upset about the broken vase, so she wouldn't feel guilty and worry? He pressed a hand to his forehead. What a childish thing to do. He didn't feel well and couldn't quite understand why. Was it the lack of sleep all night? Or had he revealed too much of himself to her? He felt anxious, restless, but couldn't put a name to it. Strangely, the feeling was familiar, like something he'd brushed against long ago. Suddenly his nose filled with Han So-eun's faint scent. Taejun sat up and sniffed the air, wondering if it was just the pillow. But no, his entire bed carried her soft, lingering fragrance. Damn it, he thought, rubbing his face. I won't be able to sleep tonight. Early Monday morning, So-eun was already at the hospital visiting his mother. The woman was overjoyed, unable to get enough of her attentive son. So-eun confessed to her that he had broken up with So-eun. His mother froze, startled. Did I hear that right? She asked if it was because the girl had learned the truth about their family's blood type. So-eun lowered his head. That was one of the reasons. His mother looked surprised. Did you end it or did she? When she heard that So-eun had dumped her son, anger flared. She started shouting, had the girl demanded money? Threatened him over the surgery? So-eun smirked. She wouldn't dare. I'm a lawyer, she knows she'd never win a case against me. Then, even more smugly, he added, and remember Cho Hyunji? The one I told you about? She confessed her feelings for me. His mother's face lit up with pure delight. A successful lawyer from a wealthy family had fallen for her son. So-eun looked pleased with himself. We started dating right after the breakup. I'm already thinking of proposing soon. The woman beamed and praised him for landing someone like Hyunji. But then she grumbled. So-eun acted so strangely. I still don't understand how she could walk away from a guy like you. So-eun's mind flashed back to what he'd seen leaving the hotel, So-eun in the arms of CEO Kim Taejun. No way there's anything between them. He's just imagining things. Meanwhile, So-eun walked alongside Bumi, both clutching iced coffees. The two girls were complaining about the unbearable heat, fanning themselves as they strolled. Bumi sighed dramatically, fanning herself with a file folder. So-eun, you've been having a way harder time than the rest of us lately. All that overtime on the future projects team must be killing you. The comment made So-eun pause. She remembered her recent conversation with the CEO, how he'd suddenly limited the extra hours and worried about her health. Bumi leaned in curiously. Are you actually interested in that new project? So-eun nodded quickly, a little gasp escaping. Yeah, why? Bumi grinned. Just asking. So-eun hesitated, then smiled. Actually, the CEO asked me to find 2 more people to join the team. I was thinking of bringing you and Mr. Jang on board. Bumi's eyes widened. Really? So-eun rushed to explain. It's only for an hour, from 6 to 7 p.m. Nothing too heavy. I promise it won't be tedious. Before she finished, Bumi let out a delighted squeal and practically launched herself at So-eun in a hug. Oh my god, thank you. I'm so in. Bumi beamed. Extra income? Working with nice people? Sign me up. So-eun laughed softly. I'll ask Mr. Jang too, but I'm pretty sure he won't say no. She felt a rush of relief, happy and satisfied. No more tackling everything alone. The work should move faster with a small team. Plus, having colleagues around might help her stop feeling like she was getting special treatment, and maybe suppress those confusing feelings of sympathy toward the CEO. A tiny wave of guilt washed over her. She was pulling her coworkers into extra hours, after all. But at least it was a good career opportunity for them too. Her thoughts were interrupted by the department head's voice over the intercom. Attention everyone, CEO Kim Taejun is treating the whole department to ice cream. Bumi squealed again. Ice cream? I'm going. I'll grab one for you too, So-eun turned just in time to overhear the department head muttering to someone, there's way too much ice cream, we should share with another department. Then she spotted the delivery boxes. Her favorite flavor, right there on top. She blinked in surprise at the coincidence, a small, puzzled smile tugging at her lips. Taejun received a photo report confirming the ice cream had been delivered and distributed to the department employees. He zoomed in on the image. In the background, So-eun stood holding an ice cream cone. The photo was a little blurry, but he still tried to make out her expression. He wanted so badly to see if she looked happy, if the small surprise had lifted her mood even a little. Suddenly, a balding elderly man approached. Director Kim, thank you for coming on such a scorching day. Let me escort you to the meeting room. Taejun loosened his tie and exhaled heavily. Thank you. It really is brutally hot today. Secretary Song Moonong was on the phone when she spotted him heading toward his office. She quickly ended the call and stopped him. Director, all the employees are so grateful for the ice cream surprise, especially on a day like this. Taejun gave a small smile. I'm glad it helped. The woman handed him a folder. Here's the list of team candidates from Han So-eun. Taejun took it, smiling to himself. She found the right people so quickly. In his office, he dropped into his chair, covered his face with his hands, and lowered his head. He hadn't slept properly all weekend. On top of that, he'd had back-to-back business meetings. Exhaustion weighed on him like lead. He felt ready to collapse. Even at home, sleep wouldn't come. Not in his own bed, not in the guest room. After So-eun left, the house felt strangely empty and uncomfortable. Finally he opened the folder. His gaze settled on the names Han So-eun had carefully selected as candidates for the future projects team. Kim Taejun walked past and overheard a female employee speaking loudly enough that her words clearly reached him. She insisted So-eun wasn't to blame for the phone bombing incident at all. If she ever quit, the company would have a really hard time finding someone as capable as her. Taejun paused for half a second. He had the distinct impression the employee was deliberately raising her voice so he could hear every word. Meanwhile, Boomy kept going. Our department has been struggling so much without her. Then, suddenly, she added with a playful tone, and have you noticed? She switched from glasses to contact lenses lately. She looks even prettier now. Another voice chimed in. Everyone thinks she's super cute. Taejun threw a quick glance over his shoulder. Manager Jang Eun-pyo stood there, cheeks flushed, looking embarrassed but nodding in agreement. Yeah, she's a very nice girl. The sight of the young man's shy, flustered expression sent a sharp spike of jealousy and irritation through Taejun. He recognized their names immediately. They were exactly the two candidates So-eun had recommended for the future projects team. Taejun couldn't believe she had suggested her own friends and colleagues to work so closely with him. He didn't like the idea of Jang Eun-pyo being around her all day, every day. But he also couldn't just disqualify the guy without a solid reason. He needed someone competent for the team. Meanwhile, So-eun arrived at work and tried to steady her frayed nerves. She took a deep breath, pulled herself together, and decided to walk in like nothing unusual had happened. She spotted Secretary Song Moonong and offered a warm smile. Hello. The woman returned the smile gently. How are you feeling today? So-eun waved it off lightly. No need to worry, I'm fine. Song Moonong chuckled softly. The Seo was the one most worried about you. So-eun felt a fresh wave of embarrassment. She still couldn't believe this elegant, beautiful woman had had to look after her like that. The secretary noticed So-eun lingering nervously outside the Seo's door, practically trembling. She called out kindly and decided to walk her in. As they entered, Song Moonong announced, Director, So-eun is here to see you. Taejun was buried in paperwork. He glanced up, then set the documents aside. How are you feeling? So-eun shifted awkwardly, avoiding his eyes. I'm fine. After everything that had happened, the hospital, the car ride, waking up at his house, she found it impossible to look him in the eye without blushing. Taejun's voice softened. I'm glad to hear that. The gentle tone made her cheeks burn hotter. She didn't know what to say next or how to act normal. Finally she cleared her throat and steered toward work. Left the letters of recommendation on your desk, the employees I selected for the team. Taejun continued working nonchalantly. I'll make a decision as soon as I review the documents. So-eun thought that was the end of it and started to leave when he suddenly stood up. Wait, I have something to say to you. She braced herself, expecting a reprimand for fainting at work. Instead, she heard Taejun apologize, sincerely, quietly. He reached into his desk drawer and held out her old broken glasses. I'm sorry. I didn't notice them, and I accidentally stepped on them. So-eun stared at the mangled frames in amazement, speechless. Taejun's voice carried real shame. I didn't know how to tell you. You said these glasses meant a lot to you. There was genuine remorse in his tone. So-eun gave a small, nostalgic smirk. They don't mean anything to me anymore. You don't have to apologize. She reached to take them, ready to toss them in the trash. Taejun moved toward the door. I'm buying you new ones. The stunned girl froze. He turned back. I still feel guilty. I want to make it right. As he left the office, he added casually, gather your things and come with me. A short while later, they were in a large shopping center. One part of So-eun wanted to refuse. Shopping for glasses with the Seo felt too much. But another part was drawn to him, her heart beating faster just being near him. She knew she shouldn't fall for her boss, but she couldn't help wondering where her feelings might lead. Taejun glanced at her and noticed her flushed cheeks. She kept averting her eyes, clearly embarrassed. At the eyewear counter, So-eun tried to protest. I can buy my own after my next salary. He shook his head firmly. I'm paying. My fault, my responsibility. So she decided to pick the cheapest pair she could find. But then a girl consultant approached them with a radiant smile. "These frames are perfect for you, they'll look marvelous." So-eun tried them on. They fit beautifully, but she still leaned toward something cheaper. The consultant spun her toward Taejun with a delighted chirp. "Look how cute your girlfriend is in these." So-eun froze in shock. Taejun leaned in close, his face inches from hers. She blushed furiously, mouth parting in surprise. He gave a sly grin. "She's cute in any kind of glasses." The words hit her like a soft punch. So-eun held her breath. In that moment she knew she was in big trouble. Her heart had definitely been captured by this man. Meanwhile, Hyun-uk stepped into the jewelry store to pick up the engagement ring Hyunji had ordered. The consultant opened a velvet box. Inside gleamed a stunning ring with a massive diamond. Hyun-uk pressed his lips together, discomfort creeping in. He hadn't expected it to be this expensive. A few days earlier, returning from a meeting, he'd noticed Hyunji staring intently at her phone. As he got closer, he saw she was scrolling through photos of engagement rings. Curious, he'd asked what she was doing. Suddenly, Hyunji asked if he was already preparing to propose to her. She looked worried, as if she doubted he'd thought it through carefully. Hyun-uk hadn't expected the question. He hesitated for a split second, then hurried to reassure her. "Of course, I'll prepare everything. Don't worry." But inside, he felt the pressure mounting. Hyunji was demanding so much from him. His mind flashed to So-eun. She would have been over the moon with even a cheap toy ring. No extravagance needed. He wasn't willing to spend a fortune on an engagement party or anything else. Then Hyunji stunned him by turning her phone toward him. "This is the ring I want for the engagement. I'll order it in your name right now." Just glancing at the photo, he could tell it was insanely expensive. Hyun-uk swallowed. "You mean, for the wedding ring?" She laughed lightly. "No, this is for the engagement. I'll find a separate wedding band and send you the link to order it." When he saw the price, 50 million won, he nearly choked with indignation. While Hyun-uk stood frozen, wondering what kind of ring could possibly justify that cost, Hyunji looked completely satisfied. "I've always dreamed of a proposal with a ring like this." She turned to him, glowing with excitement. "You'll really make my dream come true, right?" Hyun-uk didn't even have a chance to refuse. She worked with him, she knew his salary perfectly well. This was far beyond what he could comfortably afford. But he had to do everything possible to make her his wife. Now he sat in the expensive jewelry store, staring at the dazzling ring his fiancée had chosen, already dreading how much more the wedding band would cost. Suddenly Hyun-uk noticed the price on the receipt was 5 million won higher than expected. The sales girl smiled apologetically. "The price went up today." Hyun-uk stared at the receipt in horror, mind reeling. What the hell is going on? He took a deep breath, trying to pull himself together. "After the wedding, I'll be rewarded more than I'm spending now." He didn't know much about Hyunji's past, but he'd heard her father was an extremely wealthy businessman who worked abroad most of the time. Studying overseas, parents paying for her expensive apartment, she was clearly from a chaebol family. This is an investment in a secure future. He even pictured eventually persuading his future father-in-law to fund him opening his own law office. Suddenly, out of the corner of his eye, he caught a familiar figure. Hyun-uk spotted So-eun shopping, accompanied by a young man. His stomach twisted when he recognized the man as CEO Kim Taejun. An urgent, burning impulse hit him. He had to follow them. What is going on? Why is my ex-girlfriend shopping with my former client? He glanced back at the counter. Is the ring packed yet? The salesgirl nodded, handing him the elegant box. Hyun-uk hurried, shoving the receipt into his pocket. He needed to find out what was happening, right now. He quickened his pace, eyes fixed on the pair ahead. When the salesgirl finally handed him the neatly wrapped package with the ring, Hyun-uk snatched it almost roughly and stormed off in search of So-eun. He scanned the crowded mall, craning his neck, trying to spot which direction they had gone, but they had already disappeared into the sea of shoppers. So-eun walked beside Taejun, awkwardly clutching the new glasses package. She thanked him quietly for the frames and added that he really didn't need to buy her new contact lenses too. Taejun, meanwhile, couldn't shake the image of Mr. Jang admiring her earlier. His shy, flustered expression still burned in his mind, stirring an uncomfortable knot of jealousy. Suddenly So-eun stopped walking. She looked up at him. "If there's anything I can do to repay your kindness, please let me know." The words hit him like a soft punch. Taejun halted abruptly and turned to face her. He glanced at her nervously biting her lower lip, and a flood of thoughts rushed through him. He had so many desires for her, many of them quite indecent. He knew he should ask for something small and innocent. But if he let his greed take over, he would have asked for a kiss. He imagined how she'd blush, how her breath might hitch, how she'd sound if she moaned softly. He wished no one else existed in her life but him. Taejun stood there, torn, wondering if he should actually say it. But watching her embarrassed, vulnerable face, he realized he shouldn't and wouldn't. He was rude and selfish enough already. He didn't want her to run away from him. So he chose the right path, the safe one, full of compromises. Taejun turned back toward her, ducked down a little to meet her eyes and said calmly, "There's nothing you need to do for me. It was my choice." He gave her a gentle, trying to be nice smile. Then he straightened up and suggested lightly, "How about we go have dinner together?" Seeing that So-eun was still standing frozen, Taejun decided to hurry her along with a playful grin. "If you don't hurry up, I'll eat it all myself." But So-eun only coughed softly, staying rooted in place. She lowered her gaze, cheeks burning, and whispered, "I have something to tell you." She clenched her fists, voice trembling. "I like you." The words hung in the air. She blushed deeper, barely able to look at him. "I know I'll probably cause more trouble than good, but I'm so grateful for the chance you've given me." Still stammering, still flushed, she continued. "From now on, I'll focus completely on work. I just couldn't keep quiet about how I feel." She wished him a good evening in a small voice, then turned quickly to leave, before he could see the tears gathering in her eyes. Suddenly a warm, firm palm caught her hand. Taejun spun her back around to face him. "What do you think you're doing?" He pressed her hands gently but firmly to his chest. His own cheeks tinted pink as he asked, voice low and intense, "Did you really think you could say that to me, and then just walk away?" Inside Taejun, a fierce internal struggle raged. As a man accustomed to always winning, he wanted to play this game so no one lost. He craved the emotions, the feelings Han So-eun didn't yet understand, because he already knew how it would end. His inner voice warned him. He must not disappoint his grandfather and aunt's expectations. But he himself, terrified of losing what he had only just regained, would not, let her go. Taejun had planned to play with her for a while, but today he decided not to listen to that inner voice. What he heard from the girl completely ruined his plans. He lost the fight with himself. When he rushed after her and grabbed her arm, all his defenses and determination crumbled like dominoes. Taejun saw her red face and eyes full of tears. His inner voice, the one that had warned him this would happen, cried out. Now he was going to have a problem. But Taejun relented. All his doubts vanished. He knew that from now on he would always take care of So-eun. He didn't care how it ended or what the consequences might be. The man suddenly pulled So-eun into his arms and asked why she was always giving him such a hard time. He wished she were a little more cunning and twisted, like him. In the end, So-eun had won. So-eun stood still while he pressed her against his chest. The realization of what was happening made her blush and feel embarrassed again. She then hesitantly hugged Taejun back. Feeling a woman's gentle arms around his waist, the man looked at the girl and saw that she was trying to hide her embarrassed face against his chest. Taejun was surprised by this reaction. He knew she had been in a relationship before, so he wondered why she was so embarrassed around him. He exhaled softly and said it was time for them to go. Before So-eun knew it, she was sitting in his car with her seatbelt fastened. While the girl tried to figure out what was going on, the man drove contentedly, humming a quiet tune to himself. So-eun watched him humming and tried to collect her scattered thoughts. Suddenly, So-eun looked out the window and realized they were definitely not heading to her house. Her mind flashed to Taejun's earlier suggestion about dinner, and a wave of horror washed over her. She wasn't ready to talk about what had just happened between them, let alone sit across from him and eat. She wanted to say something, anything, but when she glanced at his satisfied, relaxed face, the words stuck in her throat. Embarrassment burned too hot. Finally, gathering every scrap of courage, she asked quietly, "Where are we going?" Taejun replied as if nothing unusual had happened. "I'm taking you to my house." He grinned, exhaled lightly, then added with a playful lilt, "Did you really think I'd let you go that easily now?" He laughed merrily and kept driving, humming a soft tune to himself. So-eun stared at him in stunned horror and total incomprehension. When they arrived at Taejun's house, he got out first and opened her door with a smile. "At least this time it'll be easier for me, you can walk on your own." Suddenly his phone rang. He glanced at the screen, it was his aunt. He turned to So-eun. "Wait just a second, I need to take this." While Taejun spoke on the phone, So-eun kept her eyes fixed on their still interlocked hands. He wanted to end the call as quickly as possible, so he asked his aunt directly, "What do you need me to do?" So-eun waited patiently for him to finish the call, trying to steady her breathing. When Taejun heard his aunt was almost at the house, he froze in horror. He didn't want her to see him with So-eun, she might recognize her from 20 years ago. Quickly he told his aunt over the phone, "I'll come meet your car myself. Don't drive too close to the house." He hung up and dragged So-eun back to his car as fast as possible. He helped her inside and said urgently, "Sit here and wait for me, just a few minutes. I'll see my aunt quickly and come back." The girl shifted uncomfortably. "Why do I have to hide?" The flustered man pleaded, "Please, just wait. I'll be right back." No sooner had he closed the car door than his aunt's voice rang out. Taejun ran over to her car. When the woman stepped out, she said she'd heard he smashed the moon vase she gave him. She pulled out a wooden box. I bought you a new one, made of sturdier material this time. Taejun accepted the box and apologized for the inconvenience, inwardly willing her to leave as soon as possible. But his aunt suddenly added, you seem to get along well with Secretary Song Moonong lately. Taejun tensed immediately. Had the secretary told her about Han So-eun? Are you in contact with her? Auntie's look turned conspiratorial for a moment, then she smiled broadly. I'd love to be friends with her, but unfortunately she calls very rarely, and only for work. Recently she called to ask where to buy a new moon vase, so I decided to bring it myself. As the woman started getting back into her car, Taejun exhaled a quiet sigh of relief. Auntie apologized for arriving unannounced. Taejun replied politely, everything's fine, and waved as her car pulled away. As soon as she disappeared around the corner, Taejun rushed back to his car and yanked the door open, already apologizing for the delay. But the interior was empty. His phone buzzed. A text from So-eun. She was sorry, but she had to go home. So-eun finally reached the bus stop near her house. All the way there, she replayed his frantic attempt to hide her from his aunt. He was right, they were completely mismatched. She realized he wasn't even sure whether to pursue anything with her or not. On the ride home, she stared out the window, mentally rehearsing how to act normal at work tomorrow, when she suddenly stopped short. Taejun was standing outside her house. The first thing he asked was, why aren't you answering my calls? So-eun started to apologize, but he cut her off gently. I don't need an apology. He looked away embarrassed. I just don't want my aunt interfering in my personal life. It's too early to meet relatives, we haven't even had a real chance to talk yet. He met her eyes again, less boldly this time. Are you hungry? I really want to have dinner with you. Without waiting for an answer, he added quickly, somewhere nearby, since we're already here. Take me to your favorite place. So-eun started walking, and Taejun fell into step beside her, quietly asking if everything was okay between them. Soon they were seated in a small, cozy restaurant. The girl offered to treat him to whatever dish he wanted. Taejun decided to tease her. In that case, can I order the entire menu? So-eun froze in horror. We wouldn't be here long enough to eat it all if you ordered that much. He laughed softly. I'm just joking. What do you recommend? He tried her suggestion, watching her with quiet amusement as she relaxed a little. A short while later, 2 plates of double kimbap arrived at their table. So-eun stared at hers in confusion. Why had the cook suddenly made it so much larger than usual? She felt self-conscious about opening her mouth wide in front of the CO or chewing with her mouth full. She quickly excused herself and headed for the water cooler, hoping it would give her a moment to start eating without feeling watched. Taejun poured water into a cup and made sure she drank. He realized she was embarrassed to tackle such a large portion in front of him. The restaurant owner watched the strange couple with quiet interest, a small smile on his face. On the way back, Taejun thanked So-eun for treating him. The girl felt happy, she could finally relax around him a little. She noticed that throughout dinner, he deliberately avoided looking directly at her so she wouldn't feel watched while eating. So-eun saw that he had grown very pensive. She couldn't tell if it was good or bad. Unlike her, he must have had plenty of dating experience, and she worried he didn't enjoy it with her. His past bothered her, but what bothered her most was that he hadn't responded to her confession of feelings. Looking at him, she wondered how he felt walking beside her now. Suddenly, So-eun asked, do you have a girlfriend? Taejun exhaled. Do you really think that if I had one, I'd be spending all this time with you? The girl felt awkward. Then why did you say before that you wanted to be nice to a woman? I thought you had someone in your life you wanted to treat that way. Taejun replied simply, I just wanted to strike up a conversation with you. He added quietly, in fact, I've been interested in you since the first time we met, when I gave you that grill deal. So-eun looked at him. Do you always bother the people you like this much? Taejun got embarrassed and tried to dodge. Then he admitted with a small shrug, come to think of it, yeah, I do bother you a little. So-eun walked beside him, wondering if he wasn't afraid she might end up hating him for it. Or maybe he wasn't expecting anything in return, just the slightest bit of attention was enough for him. Her thoughts were interrupted by his sudden apology. She quickly said that now that they'd worked things out, it was okay, no need to apologize. But Taejun gently took her face in his hands and moved closer. A sly grin played on his lips. I'm going to apologize for a lot of things now. He pulled her tighter against him, wrapped his arms around her, and kissed her. So-eun immediately felt her heart race and her cheeks burn. She hadn't expected him to be so bold. Taejun broke the kiss briefly and slipped a mint candy into her mouth. Then, before she could react, his lips were back on hers. The candy's strong flavor made her eyes water. She tried to pull away slightly. Breaking the kiss and breathing heavily, Taejun asked softly, didn't you like the flavor? So-eun tried to catch her breath. It's not that. He kept stroking her face affectionately. I followed you all the way home. I think I deserve a little kiss as a reward. Taejun was clearly amused by her embarrassment. He kissed her lightly on the forehead and said, I don't like pretending. He leaned down to her ear and whispered playfully, I'll devote all of myself to you. So-eun felt very uncomfortable. She wasn't used to this kind of intensity from a man. Taejun took her chin gently. If you don't like it, you can always push me away. The girl stared at him, struggling to manage her own breathing. She wasn't sure that even if she pushed, he would simply let go and walk away. While she pondered, Taejun brought her face closer. I hear no objection from you. He kissed her again, more confident this time. And So-eun liked it. She grabbed him by the lapels of his jacket and started kissing him back.